So I've been using the Google Pixel 9 Pro for about 2 weeks at this point, and if you wanted my 2-second review on whether I thought it was good and whether I recommend it, the answer would be yes. And yes. Now, if this is your first time to one of my practical reviews, this is going to be more so like my personal opinion on the specific aspects of this device that stood out to me the most, rather than like a fully fledged out objective review of every aspect of this phone, if that makes sense. And by the way, I do think it's important for me to note that I am someone who uses an external launcher. I actually use Nova Launcher to make my home screen look exactly how I want. And the reason I mention this is because I have had people say in the past that it's not really fair for me to review a smartphone while not using the stock software that it came with. And while yes, that does totally make sense, like I totally get that, this again is a practical review where I'm just using the phone as I actually would in my real world daily life. And in my real world daily life, I do tend to use a launcher. So I just like to see how the phone can hold up to my actual real world usage. Now, the first thing you'll notice when you pick up this phone is just the new design. And I gotta be honest, this legitimately might be the most beautiful phone I have ever held in my life. Like, I'm not even joking. There's something about the flat edges with this camera bar, and then especially this one with like this lighter matte gray finish. Like, this thing looks so good. And you know, I have heard people say that this kind of looks like an iPhone with these flat rails, and I think I actually did have someone in person think I was using an iPhone, and I was like, oh no, this is my Pixel. But you know what? Whatever. This thing looks great either way. But of course, just the physical looks of the device are not alone going to make this a good phone. It also just has to be a good phone, which luckily it is. And honestly, most of the things about this phone are really good. Like I have maybe a few nitpicks, which we'll get to at the end, but let's start off with the good things. Now, one thing I like about this phone is there's a lot of like little things that all just add together to enhance your experience. Like, for example, if you've never used a Pixel before, when you first turn on this phone, you're gonna notice that the haptics are better than probably every other phone that you've ever used. It also has things like Now Playing, where your phone will just automatically recognize music that is playing around you in your real life, and you can just look at your lock screen and it'll just tell you what song is currently playing without you having to do anything. Or you have things like call screening, where if you are not sure if you want to answer the phone can screen the call for you, and then you can see a live transcript of what the person on the other end of the line is saying, so then you can decide if you actually want to pick up the phone. Or you have automatic transcriptions in your voice recordings, which I actually got to use recently. Then of course, we also have more new and old AI features that all kind of add to your overall experience as well. Like, I'm sure you guys have seen the Add Me feature, which uses AI to help you add yourself into a group photo if you don't have an extra person to take the photo for you. Or we have Zoom Enhance, which uses AI to enhance a zoomed in photo. Or we have Video Boost, which can literally turn a 4K video into 8K video. Or we have Auto Reframe, which can expand our photos with AI. And we of course have our Magic Eraser and our Audio Eraser that we had before. So again, just a lot of different features that all can kind of add together to just enhance your experience. And it's kind of cool because whenever you randomly need one of these different features, you're kind of like, oh, that was really nice. Like, I'm glad that was there. It's nice to have. You know, another thing that I like about the Pixel devices is the software. I would say that my favorite Android skins are, of course, Samsung's One UI. You guys know I love Samsung. And the Nothing OS, which is actually very similar to the Pixel software. And then, of course, the Pixel's software. It's just very clean and very nice, and it feels very polished. Another thing that you may have not heard people talk about before is that this phone actually comes with a new, now ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, kind of similar to what we have on the Galaxy S24 devices. So now this fingerprint scanner is very, very fast, and honestly, I haven't tested it, but it might be faster than Samsung. I don't know. Now, two things that are very important to me with smartphones are the overall performance of the device, like how fast, smooth, and snappy is it, along with the battery life. Now, the battery life is good, but it's also not the best I've seen. Like, you know, I might get 5 to 6 hours of screen on time in a day, maybe a little less, maybe a little bit more. But, you know, I've had phones where I'll get 7, 8. I think I've even gotten 9 hours of screen on time on a phone before. So Not the best, but still good. Then as for the performance, it is generally very good. You know, I of course tried it with my custom Nova launcher setup applied, and it was very good. And I also tried it with the default Pixel launcher, and it was also very, very good, and honestly a little bit better in some instances with like app launching and animations, but both generally very good. Now I will say there are some instances where the phone takes a little bit longer to load content than I'm used to, like for example when I initially opened the TikTok app, and this can make the phone feel like it gets caught up a little bit because, you know, it's taking a second to load that content before it'll let me scroll smoothly. But you know, this probably is not that big of a deal. Now so far we have not talked about the cameras, and this is actually what is going to segue me into talking about some nitpicks that I have, so let's talk about it. Now first of all, generally speaking, the cameras are great. Like, you're gonna get good photos, you're gonna get good video, especially with the new ultra wide lens. It is very good, and we now have a very wide front facing camera, which is super cool. But there is a kind of weird thing with the camera, and I don't know if this is just me, maybe I'm crazy, but you know how when you take a photo with a phone nowadays, you know, say you take a photo, then you immediately go to your camera roll to look at it, you'll notice it'll like process for a couple seconds and then shoot out what is the finalized processed image, right? Well, sometimes on this phone, I feel like that processing ends up making the image look a little washed out. Like, I take a photo on this phone and then I immediately go to the camera roll and it looks pretty good. And then when the processing finishes, it looks a little washed out. Like, the shadows or the blacks in the image are like brought up to be brighter than they actually are in real life. Now, this doesn't happen all the time. Like, I think it happens more so indoors rather than outdoors. And I think this might have to do, at least partially, with the HDR processing. Like, and you do have an option to turn off HDR on the phone, and that does help, though maybe not entirely. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you guys think the photos look great with the processing. Who knows? Now, another nitpick with the camera is that still our zooming in between our different focal lengths is still not super smooth. Like, you know, I'm just gonna say it. iPhones have had smooth camera switching for a little while now, right? Well, what's up with Android phones and still being jittery when zooming in between the different cameras? Like, can we fix that, please? Now, I have two final nitpicks, and these both actually maybe are a little bit niche because they both just have to do with the TikTok app. But sometimes when I'm watching TikTok, I will get randomly dropped frames in the videos. Like, the video will be playing smooth, and then suddenly it'll be playing at like a lower frame rate, and then it'll start playing smooth again. Like, it's kind of weird. And then another thing with TikTok, and this is something that I've had happen on other Pixel devices in the past, but sometimes my videos that I'm watching look washed out. I know, another washed out problem. I guess it's kind of weird, but it's weird because it's not every single video. It's only some videos, and it's only some videos sometimes. Like, sometimes I'll go back to a video that looked washed out, and then this time it's not washed out. And you can actually like see when a video is washed out. You can see it look normal for like a split second. Like, when you first load the video, it looks normal, and then it adds this like washed out film over it. Like, it's kind of strange. I don't know why it does that. And also, I'm not sure I've ever seen anybody else ever have that issue before, so I don't know. Could just be me, who knows? And of course, these aren't necessarily the phone's fault. It could just be that TikTok needs to optimize their app for this phone, but either way, my user experience is impacted when using this phone. But anyways, in conclusion, this phone is great. Now, no, it's not absolutely perfect. There's some things that I wish were better, but it also has some features that other phones just simply don't have, and I think that's great.